Change doesn't happen on its own. It happens on purpose, and Bloomerang understands that. They've built their software for your purpose, designed to ignite human connection and give you deeper insight into your donors. Bloomerang connects nonprofits with their supporters, building a cycle of impact that accelerates with each new link. Their giving platform isn't just clearing hurdles, it's raising the bar. Schedule a tour at bloomerang.com and discover how over 20,000 organizations just like yours raise, recruit, and retain more supporters with the help of the Bloomerang Giving platform. Learn more at bloomerang.co/purpose and profit. Welcome to the Purpose and Profit Club podcast for nonprofit leaders, mission-driven creatives, and social entrepreneurs. Get ready to stop dreaming and start doing. Here, ideas become action. We prioritize purpose and profit. You ready? Let's go. Welcome back to the Purpose and Profit Club podcast. I'm excited for this topic today. It's something that I've really been working on in my own life and has been working really, really well for my clients. We're going to talk about sort of the push-pull between motivation and commitment, okay? So we think we need motivation to do things. It makes sense, right? But if you're waiting to feel like it to do something, you will stay stuck. Meaning if you're waiting to feel motivated to take a really important action, a critical, a brave action towards your goals, it will keep you stuck. And if you're relying solely on commitment, you may grind yourself into the ground, okay? You may grind yourself into the ground. So what most people believe about motivation and commitment, we're going to dig into today, and why this conversation especially matters for fundraisers, nonprofit leaders, and marketers, because y'all are doing hard things, right? And it is very easy to get stuck in, I will call them sort of to-do list tasks that are important, but don't actually drive the needle forward. I always think of one last pass through that email draft, tinkering with a blog post. Those are tasks you can do that actually don't move you towards your big, bold goals. And the reason why people get stuck doing them is because they're waiting for inspiration to strike. They're waiting for that dose of motivation or commitment to strike to actually do the bigger, harder thing. So before we dig in too much, I'm going to share with you a goal that I'm working on. I have a goal to get 9 more podcast reviews. So if you have not reviewed the podcast and you enjoy it, we need to pause right now and hit 5 stars on your podcast app. If you're using Apple Podcasts, you have to scroll to the bottom and you'll see leave a review. You can leave a review and share your wisdom with our listeners. I would be so grateful because I'd love to get 9 more reviews by the end of this month. All right, let's dig in. So here's why this trips people up. Motivation actually feels good, but it is fleeting. It is fleeting. Commitment keeps you going, but it can feel heavy like that grind. Okay, so let's actually look at this in what this looks like. Okay, so the consequences of relying on only one, either motivation or commitment. Commitment only, I find, leads to burnout, stress cycles, resentment, and avoidance. If you think about anything as a child that you were committed to doing, but you didn't love doing. So I was committed to doing math. It's just part of the deal. I did not love doing it. That commitment felt like I have to energy. And at some point, if I had to continue to study calculus throughout my entire academic career, I would have gotten burnt out. I would have avoided it even more. Think about things that you right now are just heavy in commitment. It sounds like I have to in your head. I have to energy. I have to do this. Then let's switch the gears. Let's talk about motivation. Motivation only looks like inconsistency and waiting for ideal conditions. I think that most adults, if you're not somebody who has has a fitness regimen that you love or a sport you love, I think we can easily see this show up in either fitness or wellness or food choices, health kind of bucket. Okay. So motivation is like, yeah, I'm going to go for a run today. Right. You're like, yeah, I'll go for a run today. But then you're like, I don't know. It's kind of, it's a little hot, right? You're waiting for the ideal conditions. You talk yourself out of it versus I'm going for a run today because I said I would. Commitment to self. So there's this dread factor that happens where, I want you to know that most people aren't lazy. They're dreading the discomfort of doing the thing. And that's like the first piece of this. So if we use the run example, if you haven't been for a run in a while, there's going to be some dread. There's going to be some discomfort because you're like, it'd be so much easier to not. That's homeostasis, right? And the motivation isn't there. It isn't like already churning inside of you. Neither is the commitment because you haven't done it in a while. And there's a lot of reasons why you can talk yourself out of it. And today I'm going to talk to you about some strategies that are working so well for me, so well for my clients, and get you out of what I think is like white knuckling grind culture that we can see when you're too heavy on commitment, and really kind of have more of a harmonious relationship with both commitment and motivation. So you can kind of pull on one when you need it. So what I see very often in fundraising and nonprofit leadership is that leaders avoid the big hard thing, whether that's the email, the phone call, the ask, the follow-up. Oh my gosh, you did the thing, but now you have to follow up and all you want to do is talk yourself out of the follow-up, right? Because it feels scary, because we don't want to bug people, right? Or you force yourself to power through without support and then wonder why you feel exhausted and disconnected. Take a moment and go, which one am I more likely to do? Which one am I a little more avoidant, or am I the power through type? And I will tell you personally, I'm the power through type. I'm like grind until I'm like, wait a second, let's do a internal check-in. How are we feeling? Why are we doing this? Do I like my reasons for doing this? Is there another way I can still take this action, but actually feel better through it? Okay. Here's where I see it showing up. Avoiding a donor meeting, sitting on an amazing idea for a campaign that you never actually you never birth it, right? It never goes out the door. Over prepping instead of taking action, over prepping instead of pitching, over prepping instead of just putting your hat in the ring, pitching the media, pitching the podcast, calling the donor, letting fear of rejection keep you quiet. So let's look at some examples here. I think it will help you to see like the contrast of how motivation and commitment show up. So motivation is wanting to eat healthier after watching a documentary. Who here has ever watched a documentary and, it doesn't even matter what it was about, but it had a healthy spin and suddenly you're like, I'm going to go vegan for 30 days. I'm going to do Whole30 for 30 days. I'm going to eat only organic for the next month or whatever, right? You feel inspired. Some outside something gave you that jolt of inspiration and motivation. And you're like, that's it. No more, and only fresh fruits and vegetables. And that's it, because you felt inspired by reading a book, watching a documentary, listening to a podcast, whatever it is. Maybe a friend is having success. And so you're like, oh, I'm going to try this. Versus commitment. Meal prepping on Sunday, even when you'd rather relax. That's commitment, right? There's no outside real source making you do that or inspiring you to do that. Motivation, feeling inspired to start a new hobby or fitness routine. Commitment, going to the gym even when you're tired, cranky, or it's raining. Okay, so motivation, I will say to you, let's see, with one of my hobbies. So I have two that come to mind. One is I took an improv class last year and I really, really loved it. And I just had one little drop-in moment of motivation where I was like, this could be fun, add to cart, sign up. I didn't let myself overthink it. I just said, I think this will be fun. I'm going to do this. And then every Monday when I had improv class, I would have those moments of really having to rely on commitment because it was a Monday night. And what do I want to do on Monday night? I want to chill at home. It's been a Monday. I don't want to go back out. I don't want to talk to people. And so I had to rely on commitment. I signed up for this class and we go. And every time I got there, it was like going through the doors. We do our first round of warm-up exercises. I was so happy. Then I was in motivation, right? I was so happy I was there. But I had to lean on 20% commitment. It wasn't a hard amount of commitment just to get me through the door. Okay. So motivation. Here's a fundraising example. Motivation, having a donor say yes and writing the momentum to reach out to 3 more. This is a hot tip. So if you've ever had a really great phone call, meeting, something, even maybe you go to check your mailbox and you had a bunch of written checks come in, you're having a celebratory moment. Take that celebratory moment and call 3 more donors. even if you weren't planning on today. Why? Because your body is like, dopamine, this feels amazing. Go call 3 more donors. That's using motivation when you heard the yes and you called 3 more people. You're riding the wave, okay? Using motivation then. Versus commitment, reaching out before anyone says yes, when it's still quiet and scary. This is a lot of what we're doing in the sprint method. That is my new program where I'm teaching smaller shop, solo fundraisers and founders how to raise 5 figures in every fundraising campaign. This is the work. This is the work, batching what we call CEO time with a couple of times throughout the week. So you're batching that time and you may go, oh, here's my CEO block. It's at 11 a.m. That's time. I don't want to reach out to any donor. I haven't heard a yes today. And we go. So you rely on commitment there. And so here's the thing. You actually need both. You actually need motivation and commitment. So I don't want you to take from today, I'm just going to commit to everything, because I think there are a lot of gurus, thought leaders out there. If you've ever listened to one of those annoying 5 a.m. club, I wake up at 4 a.m. and then I have my protein shake and then I go to the gym and then I do my cold plunge and all of this happens before 5:30. That's really heavy on commitment, have to energy. And I think it works for some people if you're a morning person. If you're not, you can commit to doing things at a different time. You have to find the commitment and the softness that works for you. I'm not a morning person. I had at one time went to a 6 a.m. yoga class and I was like, oh boy, this is not for me. I came home, I was wiped for the day, like done. So I know that I have to be gentler to myself in the morning, and I will commit to my most courageous, most high impact work between the hours of like 10 and 2. That's prime time for me. So everybody's different. So if I know I need to do something that is reliant on commitment that I may not have a lot of internal motivation for, I'm going to plan that not at 7 a.m. I'm going to plan that when I feel best. So there's kind of a little bit of a hack for you too. You can also think of motivation as a bonus, commitment as the structure, community as the fuel. That personally is why I love coaching in community, having group coaching programs, being a part of them, and of course, coaching within them in the club and the sprint method. That is why I do this, because there's something that happens when people come together, when they have, a shared belief, they have a shared mission, they are in this work of social impact. Even if you don't get coached, you leave better than you came. And if you can ride that little motivation, it's a shorter wave than commitment. After those coaching calls, we get to work. We get to work and we can feel that. And that's also why in the club, we really have a practice of celebrating. I make everyone celebrate their wins. You have to celebrate, because celebration is how you cultivate the skill of creating motivation. That's kind of meta, so stay with me. So I told you the improv example where I signed up for it and I really had to rely on commitment, because it would be very easy to talk myself out of going on Monday nights. And I want to offer, I'd say 20%, maybe 30% of the people in our class trailed off, didn't show up. I know they were dealing with the same mindset crap that I was. I'm just not going to go. I don't know anyone, right? The whole garbage loop, right? And so instead, I would self-talk to myself on the way home and be like, here's 10 reasons why I'm so glad I came. Here was a win today. I did my first scene and it was fine. It was silly. I actually, stretched that muscle. Or I did my first scene. It was a total flop and I didn't die, right? Like any of it. And so celebrating yourself, whatever action you took along the way, will actually help you cultivate more self-motivation in the future. Okay. So it really is a skill you build. It really is a skill you build. So I want to define it. Motivation, I think of as an internal spark. It can be practice. It can be grown. It can be something you put your reps in for, but it isn't always accessible, right? It's not always there. It's a rainy, gloomy day, and the last thing you want to do is anything but Netflix and jammies, right? You got to channel some commitment in that case. It's going to be hard to get motivated. Whereas commitment is decision plus follow through. I find the chatter of the internal self-talk of commitment to be a little bit more of that parent relationship and a little bit more decisive. So if you think about a kid who's like, can I have some candy? Can I have some gum? Can I have a snack before dinner? This would be really fun. the parent style of like, no, we're just going to do this. Nope, we're just going to do this. That's the tone of commitment for me. Is nope, we're just going to call that donor. I know you think we shouldn't, but we're going to call that donor today because it's our CEO time. And that's what we're doing today. It's okay. I got you. It's like loving and firm. It's the same energy that gets people out of bed at 5 a.m. if that's their jam. Loving and firm. So I want to share some examples of what this looks like in the wild. Okay. So for example, you may be like, I got to send an email this week. I've got to send an email to my list, or I have to send out that fundraising later, but you're not feeling inspired. Whereas last week you had a really inspirational story to share with your community and you wrote a beautiful post about it. You sent out that great email about it. And now you're like, now what? So you're going to have to lean on commitment in that case, sending the email, even when the story doesn't feel big enough for the week, even when you think you don't have a big flashy headline to tell. That's how we land and lean on commitment. And you got to celebrate yourself for sending it. You got to find the win in there. You've got to talk to yourself in a way that feels uplifting and cup filling, not like that was a dumb email, right? That was a dumb letter to send. No. So I worked with a client inside the club who had been avoiding a campaign launch email for several days. The longer she waited, the worse she felt, right? There's that loop. Well, hang on, I got to tinker it. I'm not sure we're ready. I need to look at this page. I got to get my street team. Lots of good, air quotes, reasons to not send it. But she showed up for a power hour. That is a co-working session we have inside the club where we do the hard thing in community. She dropped perfectionism, wrote the email, sent it during the session, and the result, donations came in that day. It didn't have to be perfect. She didn't need to feel like, her high vibe self. She didn't have to wake up and feel, an 11 out of 10. She could just feel how she was feeling and write the email. It wasn't about the perfect words. It was about taking action. Quick interruption. If you've got a fundraiser coming up or wish you had an influx of donations, I'm teaching a live workshop called Make It Matter Now, How to Use Urgency to Raise More Faster, and you're invited. This isn't about hype or desperation. It's about creating real momentum that moves donors to give quickly and confidently. I'll show you how to write urgent messages that work, keep energy up mid-campaign, and increase your donations without burning out your list or your donor base. It's happening on April 14th at 1 Eastern, and tickets are just $27. Grab your spot at splendidcourses.com/make it matter or click the link in the show notes. See you there. Being in community and celebrating was essential, creating just enough motivation to act. This is why power hours are so important. This is why celebrating the work you do exists in the club and should exist. If you're listening to this, write out, make it a daily practice. Celebrate the wins that you take, big and small. Every win is not, we received a $50,000 donation today. A win is I left a voicemail for an important donor that I've been putting off. That's a win. I got my board to attend a group thankathon. We just had a client do that. So good. I engaged my board, right? That's a win. And can we talk about dread for a minute? Dread in our brain is 10x, maybe 100x of what it actually is in real life, meaning it's never as bad as you think. Oftentimes, the story that is keeping us from taking action is prolonging what isn't even bad at all. And it's making the entire process take more time, feel harder, and will drain you, will create more stress, will create more burnout, right? So the dread is almost worse than the actual doing. Once you act, you shift your energy, your mindset, and your results, okay? So the task doesn't actually get easier, but you get braver. The task doesn't have to get easier, but you get better at just doing it and doing it in a way that is kind to yourself. Not doing it in the way of the gonna punish myself through this, gonna make this call and feel terrible. I'm working with a client right now who is in a major donor conversation for a really urgent need. And the conversation that she's having can go one of two ways, right? It can go in this way of like, I have to call her. I'm tightening my fist. I better say the right things. Or this is what I told her. Remember, there are no perfect, exact right words to say to splice together in a sentence. If there was the perfect right words to say, there would be one book called fundraising, one book called marketing, and we would all repeat them all to each other to high capacity people, right? That's ridiculous. Let yourself be imperfect. Let yourself be human. Make the call. Have the coffee meeting. Sit down in person. Ask good questions. Be a listener. Be a great listener. Take the action. Be kind to yourself during it. Let yourself trip on your words. That's okay, because humans trip on your words. Even your major donor prospect will trip on their words, right? We are all imperfect. But it's really, really important that you get in the arena. It's really, really important that even if you can't channel motivation that day, you realize you're going to lean on commitment. And the next time you have to do it, you're going to be motivated to do it. Inside the club, we also have this concept of the flywheel, the profit and impact flywheel. And we go through a process where you actually create internal motivation. And that internal motivation is, again, it's a skill, right? Because it's not always there for you. But if you want that if you want that skill to be larger, of having more internal motivation. So if you think about, the biggest, most time sensitive three goals that you want to accomplish. And you're like, you know what, Christina, I don't want this to just be so heavy on commitment, have to energy. I wonder how I could be motivated to do the big, hard thing. I wonder how I could be motivated to launch our recurring giving campaign, even though I've never actually done a campaign like this before. I wonder how I could be motivated to sell out our tickets to our event a week ahead of time, even though I've never done it before. And you have to ask yourself, and I would get a pen and paper out and say, how can I create some motivation for it? And the biggest shift you have to make is you have to take yourself out of it and think about why in the world you're doing this to begin with. Your purpose. Everyone in our sector and social impact has a deep purpose. You're not selling shoes. You're not, building cars. You're doing the work you're doing. Unless you're building toy cars, like one of our clients actually. But you're in this with deep purpose. And I want you to think about your purpose and how that purpose could create motivation. How could you create the motivation? How is it so much more than you? How is it so much more impactful? And why does it matter so much more? And you're just a vessel to make that call, send that email, follow up for the third time to that donor that you're scared has ghosted you. They haven't ghosted you, by the way. That's a story you're telling. They just didn't respond to your email. Your email could be in spam. Pick up the phone, call them. It's wild. The stories we jump to, the conclusions we jump to, we think things are true that aren't actually true. This is a different client that told me recently that one of their donors, he had declined donating to a particular program. And then we actually kind of poked around and we're like, no, he didn't. He was never actually overtly asked. We inferred. Inference is not it's as much of a yes as it is a no. It's a nada. It doesn't even count. So moving towards the thing that's hard because you choose to move towards that hard thing. You choose to do the brave thing because that gets you closer to the people you serve, the impact that you want to create, that your mission creates. Okay. So if you're waiting for motivation to hit before doing that thing, don't. Try this instead. Just commit for 20 minutes. Do it messy. Show up for others if you can and celebrate the doing. And actually, this could be one of the best ways you start doing it. Start doing it in your personal life first, because maybe it won't feel so charged. Maybe it won't feel so hard. So if you're somebody who's like, you know what, Christina, I would like to go for a run twice a week. Then your very first step is you're going to go for a run tomorrow and you're going to make the run 5 minutes long. You're going to give yourself little bite-sized pieces, whatever feels doable. Okay. You're not going to go for the 5K tomorrow and the next day and the next day. You've got to show yourself some wins along the way. And what we do in one area of our life is transferable. That skill is transferable in other areas of our life. So what's one thing that you've been dreading or putting off or delaying, wanting to be perfect, that you need a little more commitment over motivation? Or how could you create some motivation to do that one thing? DM me over on LinkedIn or Instagram at Splendid Consulting and tell me when you do it. I want to celebrate you. All right, I'll see you next time. And as a reminder, if you enjoy this podcast, help me get those 9 new reviews. I'd love to hear what you enjoy about the podcast. And if you are interested in joining the Sprint Method or the Purpose and Profit Club, the best way to do it is to get on our waitlist. We'll link to those in the notes, or you can always go to splendidatl.com/start. See you next time. Hey, high achiever. I know your sights are set on ambitious, world-changing goals. In the Purpose and Profit Club group coaching program, you can get the support, motivation, and strategy to accelerate your impact. I like to say it's where the inner work meets a big impact and big funding. Go to splendidcourses.com/waitlist, and you will be first to be notified when we open up doors, and you'll get special bonuses when you join our waitlist. See you inside.